Is this the end of Doctor Who? Time Agent Brendan here, reporting on what an alarmingly large amount of different publications and YouTubers are starting to say. Do we think the reports have legs? Is it just hysteria backed up with no real evidence? You know what the saloon does? We'll take a look. Now, of course, the starting place is the present. The ratings for Lux, 470,000 down on the overnights from week one's Robot Revolution. That's the starting point. And of course, the comparison doesn't look too hot. But of course, we only just found out, didn't we, as well, that if you judge it on the 7 days, that it's actually performing 140, 150,000 less than Space Babies. And Space Babies set the low bar, let's be honest. And remember, whether it's Space Babies or whether it's Robot Revolution followed by Lux, all that marketing, where's the evidence that it works when even Antiques Roadshow is beating it? So there's just a concern so far from many YouTubers and many people out there in the industry about the state of Doctor Who based on stats. We then move on to other concerns there are about Doctor Who. And these come from different publications. This is the Critic. The Metro article was not defending Doctor Who for once. And these are two choice publications for once that I'm going to use today. Here we've got the remark that, gosh, what a difference 2 years makes. RTD, the great showrunner himself, the man who done It's a Sin, Queer as Folk, Second Coming, the whole lot, years and years. He was seen as a saviour by the BBC to get Doctor Who out of that treacle, out of that swamp from the Chibnall era when the ratings tanked. So that was 2023. 2 years later, he seems downbeat himself in some of the interviews. The news round one was so revealing, wasn't it? Because the great, hype himself, RTD, said there might be a pause. And during that pause, young viewers will grow up a few years and start writing stories and they'll bring it back. He'd been asked about season 3 and he's talking about a pause. He's talking about, it having, been taken away. So it seemed to me his psychology was betrayed by his choice of language when he was relaxed. And, we've all heard the certain rumours. So stats not good. The showrunner, who's normally quite pitch perfect on his hype, everything's bigger, madder, wilder, better, all that stuff, seemed quite downbeat, didn't he? So that showed a concern from the top. And of course, RTD seemed to talk about the future rather than the present. Let's be honest about that. We know, of course, let's say it again, Disney are saying they are waiting till the end of season 2 has been broadcast before they announce anything about season 3. But that vacuum is very worrying, and that vacuum of any kind of official announcement looks the opposite to when you've seen Gladiators has been given another series, Michael McIntyre's being given another series. And it seems on the television landscape, other programs can be commissioned quite quickly, like White Lotus. White Lotus already has been commissioned for another series, but Doctor Who, we have to wait. And I think that can only show concern. And then you look at the ratings and you go, well, quite right. And you work through all this up, and then you hear the showrunner not sounding too happy himself. And then you hear that the lead actor, Ncuti Gatwa, is going to hit the West End in 2025 late on. So he will not be available for any filming. So there's at least going to be a gap or a pause. Now that's a concern, because the argument before, remember, when RTD the Saviour came back, was Doctor Who on TV every year. And now it looks as though we're going to at least get a very, very long gap. There's other concerns though as well, because there doesn't seem too much excitement or buzz about season 2. As that second paragraph says here from the Critic, it all feels a bit scattershot and lacks the confidence other seasons had. It feels a bit terminal, says this critic. And if you think about the amount of promotion, I actually think it shows desperation. Actually, it does not show confidence in the brand. You've got the numerous trailers, snapshots, tweeting out there stuff, interviews. I would have always said the argument, I really would in drama, the argument is less is more. And what we've got here is more is diminishing it. I am really getting irritated as a fan that in the pre-credit sequences to Joy to the World at Christmas and to Robot Revolution, I'd already seen all the pre-credits in all the trailers. Add to that, I mean, the Detoxers joked, didn't they, when I had them on, when I showed them all the snaps I had that had been made public for Robot Revolution, and they said it was almost like a telesnap sequence. You could almost stitch the plot together, and it hasn't been broadcast yet. That can only show desperation and a concern, a deep, deep concern that they have to ram the message home and hope that somebody tunes in. I really don't smell a vibe here that they're actually happy with their product, and they are just desperately hoping to, I don't know, address and correct this possible terminal trajectory. And yet he tells us that Doctor Who is the top drama for the under 35s. When I was actually discussing this the other day, when we looked at the 7 days for Robot Revolution, if you really look at it, Doctor Who's in 21st place. Antiques Roadshow, most of the soaps, a few other little pocket dramas beat Doctor Who. So I notice he's gone quite niche there. For the under 35s, it's the top drama. How many dramas are made for the under 35s? Hollyoaks, a few other things. You know, what's the competition? And actually, Antiques Roadshow, without any Disney global streaming platform, clearly pitched at a wider audience, talking about some old vase, talking about some old watches found in a garage, is actually doing a lot better than Doctor Who, that wants to go bigger, that has actually said its ambition is to go global, and it's getting trounced by the 1% Club, Antiques Roadshow, blankety blank. I mean, really? I think that's a terminal danger for Doctor Who because it's such an expansive programme to make. And of course, as the critic opened with, is this the end of Doctor Who because it's become so embroiled in the battles of the culture war? And this is, I've argued this a lot. This is not where Doctor Who needs to be when it's trying to actually resurrect itself and revive itself. It's dangerous, absolutely dangerous. And I did a programme last week, didn't I, on this? Is RTD crashing Doctor Who into a political trouble? Some of the main actors seem to be politically motivated and political advocates for campaigns. Fine, free speech and all that. But it's just a toxic concoction at the moment when Doctor Who just needs to remember what it's there for, scaring the kids, getting into the national consciousness again as a science fiction programme. And it seems to be always, whether it's as literal as the fourth wall or literally deflecting our attention from the actual programme to the people around the programme. That seems to be the fundamental problem that we've been pulled into. And I think anybody now who gets on with RTD or is employed by RTD, unfortunately, falls into that political forum a bit too much. Another reason why, of course, Doctor Who is more in peril than was is it can't win the culture war itself, whereas RTD seems to think this brand can be used as some sort of battering ram for his political platforming. The Doctor, compared to James Bond, compared to some of the Marvel superheroes, compared to Snow White, the Doctor, as is argued by the critic, is a uniquely vulnerable brand. And we've all seen this because the Doctor can turn into, it seems, anything, you know, any presentation of the human form. And that is obviously concerning because whoever's in charge of that product can actually present what they want to be presented. So the vulnerability is there. And at the moment, the argument is in the critic, it seems who the Doctor is much more important than what he is and what he does. And obviously some of our reviews have delved into that, which is the Doctor's quite diminished as a character, as I've assumed. The showrunner seems bored with the Doctor's characterization is. He's more bothered about these humans running around and solving all the plots for him. He's then left to be what? A clothes horse? Just a representation of an element of humanity. It is a worry. Furthermore, though, Doctor Who, unfortunately, as a program, now seems to be behind the curveball, behind the zeitgeist, so to speak. Hollow representation, seen in many adverts and many dramas over the last few years, that's out. Pop culture lecturing audiences is out, argues the critic. You take a look at it. And also the other thing is, you've got to make Doctor Who ever present, important, to be talked about, not politically. People just say, oh, my kids were scared to death. Look at that last paragraph there. Literally no one cares about this guff, former showrunner Stephen Moffat said to the Times at Christmas. You know, maybe a few fatuous media lovers like me, but check the bus queues in restaurants in Britain. Go and listen outside the living rooms. Do you think they're talking about all this bloody crap? They are talking about this bloody crap, but it's about the politics of Doctor Who, and it's about the choices and the obvious representational choices going on. They're not talking about the kids got scared or they love sit and watch. That's the issue. And if you look back on season 1, the other issue and reason why Doctor Who is limping and not hitting the heights that we expected it to under RTD is because in season 1, his interviews stoked conflict and identity politics, story baiting audiences, dot and bubble, hinting that we are the problem. And then, of course, choosing Ncuti Gatwa to try and make the Doctor Who brand and character cool and approachable, when I don't think the Doctor's character was ever the issue. When was the Doctor ever the issue to the national public? I've never heard a conversation where people say, Doctor Who's so off-brand. Doctor Who doesn't represent me. Never heard stuff like that. But it seems with this kind of team of Bad Wolf and numerous executive producers, they are obsessed by what does the Doctor say about Britain? What does the Doctor say about us? Get on with the stories. Get off the planet and stop navel gazing. That is the problem. So the other issue, I have to say, there's a lot of problems Doctor Who faces at the moment. And as the critic quite rightly pointed out, who is Doctor Who aiming at? I said earlier, he's proud that he seems to have got Doctor Who as the top drama for under 35s. As I said, it might be a skimpy field of competition. You mentioned that Ryland's is in episode 6 and Graham Norton, and you look at some of the appointments and trailers and focuses of interviews, and you think, are we trying to be down with the kids? Who are we trying to reach out to? Because the bulk of the British public are not there. And I think you're talking to the wrong people. Doctor Who never tried to be hip and trendy. I always find anything that's tired, anything that's old, trying to be hip and trendy ends up looking a bit sad and hollow and a fraud. And I don't like that position. And the critic pointed out quite rightly. Obviously, the concern is also that Doctor Who had a weak launch with Space Babies. We can't unravel that. We can't take that away. But the first season of the 15th Doctor, after it was teed up by the specials and David Tennant coming back, tanked it. It tanked it. And as everybody knows, yes, we've had bad episodes before, like Love and Monsters 42, Sleep No More, as a critic says here. But first impressions count. And we can't take away what happened with Space Babies. As he says here in the third paragraph, Ncuti's tenure, meanwhile, has been marred by convoluted stories about space gods, weak resolutions, and genuinely terrible episodes like the loathsome Space Babies. I lay a lot of the blame for the general antipathy towards Ncuti's run at the feet of whoever thought Space Babies the first episode was a good idea. It was a rubbish story with a gross but forgettable baddie and ropey CGI. And of course, since we'd just come off the Chibnall Flux and Legend of the Sea Devils, we really needed something a lot cleverer, a lot more kind of on the nose than Space Babies. So as the critic argues, first impressions matter, and it's very hard to take that away. You know, people take a look. We know you can get audiences back. People came back for the specials, just have a nosy. Obviously, it didn't help that in the very first one we had a pronoun debate and female presenting Time Lords dialogue. That was unfortunate, wasn't it? That was a mistake. If you want to get it back on brand, just get the nosy casual viewers going, let's take a look at how Doctor Who is nowadays. You know, those people who've come in and out of the programme over the 60 years, you needed to be a safe point of contact, and it wasn't. It made people laugh. It made people think, what is all this about? So that was the concern. It's actually put people off. And of course, it feeds into that sense that Doctor Who wasn't as good as it was. And part of the reason for that, you know, is it is possible that that happens, but it's because it's become so much diminished, so much resorting to a simplistic formula, almost infantilizing plots, almost infantilizing the audience, talking down to them. That's the vibe. And remember, it's forgotten how to scare consistently in an episodic structure and cliffhangers the kids. And if it forgets its unique selling points, then it does become more diminished and hard to actually find elbow room in a competitive market. There is a lack of excitement, let's be honest, and that's what the critics pointed out. You know, is it because it's been dumped on iPlayer on Saturday mornings and that's the fault of the BBC? Obviously, they think it's no longer event TV. And as the critic said, the producers of The White Lotus, already commissioning season 4 before season 3 had been broadcast, I will repeat, as the critic says, other big shows don't do this. You don't see White Lotus streaming hours before the episode debuts, do you? No, they make you wait because they're confident the audiences will tune in. And what we've seen from the Doctor Who team and BBC, Bad Wolf and Disney is a hemorrhaging of confidence. And it's hemorrhaged so fast, quite alarming actually, because they haven't held fast and steady. So, as the Metro says, and we all know the Metro and the other journalist there normally defends it to the hilt. But this article is the opposite. Doctor Who's greatest episode in years, that we're talking about looks, as in how it was made, how it was touching some of the Doctor Who beats, but it still didn't deliver and the ratings weren't there. So is it broken beyond repair? Obviously, the argument being, even when you start doing a 1 or 2 better episodes, the audience has already run. So is it beyond repair? I am an optimist. I do think RTD and that team needs to go. I don't think they can repair it, not at all. We don't need plasters or bandages now. We need root and branch change. I almost could echo what Chris Eccleston said, and we all looked and wondered what was going on there. But I think the Bad Wolf team need to go. RTD needs to go. They need to start again. And I actually think they do need a pause now to have a damn good rethink about how they establish this program. The argument here on this page is small can be beautiful, and maybe we can tolerate programming that dares us to pay attention instead of assuming we need instruction. There is value in art that takes us away from our present moment and its suffocating value system. Good TV need not be a political manifesto. Are you hearing that, RTD? And in 2025 of all years, maybe we could all do with some high quality escapism. Isn't that what RTD argued about 2 years ago? He said, I want you to turn away from the news, turn away from all your political troubles and see Doctor Who as a safe space. He's done anything but that. What else could Doctor Who be rescued, or is it beyond repair? Well, the argument here is that Doctor Who doesn't need all that budget. Adversity always breeds creativity. But the other thing is, Doctor Who, when it was up against Buck Rogers, the A-Team, all the rest of it, it always knew that although it didn't have the American budget, it could always try and be the cleverest stories, the funniest characters. Now, funniest, I think, is just the quirky Britishness, and the scariest. And it survived. And we've got that as a legacy because it also respected its audience as intelligent. And Space Babies, Devil's Cord, and a lot of the plotting recently, they're so simplistic, so formulaic, so didactic that actually they can only assume that the audience are either not watching, not concentrating, and need the message rammed down their throat just in case. So, if we want Doctor Who to recover, says the critic, there are a few key things. Bring back suspense. I think on our streams, we've used the word jeopardy all the time. Bring back tension, jeopardy, suspense. Sustain it. We don't want 1 minute of a moment in a 43-minute episode and the rest is all hijinks. No, I have to say the moment has come, BBC, to take Doctor Who back to an episodic formula. Don't be busting your showrunners to death over, they need 8 to 10 brilliant ideas a year. 2 or 3 really good ideas. Lux had the potential and it had a good idea. It could have been staggered over 3 or 4 weeks. Scared people, got them involved with the characters, got them even more involved with that world in 1952 Miami. Rather than, here's a snippet, here's a highlight, here's a bite-sized bit of instruction. Next week, we go somewhere else. No, slow down now. Depth is better. Okay? And the other argument is encourage your younger viewers to come in, coax them in. Don't lecture them. Classic Doctor Who had free thought, free speech, free action. It did still hold a mirror to society, but it also didn't alienate the viewers at the same time. Modern Doctor Who, according to the critic here, well, allegories have gone, metaphors gone, subtext has now become the main text. And so, unfortunately, there's no kind of nuance and subtlety and space for the viewer to just make their own mind up. We all like to be encouraged and guided, but then ultimately to be given the respect that we will make the decision on the characters or the issue that's being presented in this escapist drama. We don't get that respect anymore. And of course, there are so many moments when it just seems that our showrunners and writers are just baiting us. And that is very unsatisfactory to experience. And of course, they've decided that making Doctor Who an alien and intellectual with his anti-fashionable threads, as the critic put it, is not on point. They made a very acute decision to make the Doctor no longer this Edwardian, outwardly dressing person, but into a sexy young man who emotes relentlessly, snogs other sexy young men and wears a succession of painfully chic outfits. Why? That's all superficiality. That's nothing to be admired. That's nothing, even if you're talking about somebody being sexy or good looking, we all know looks are on the surface level and they don't last. And the beauty of the Doctor is they always had quirky faces. They were not narcissistic. And unfortunately, Doctor Who's been taken down that road, and there's no common sense why. And too many episodes now are starting to come on the worst of Doctor Who of all time. There's Space Babies there. We've had the Vanquishers from only a couple of seasons ago. We've got the Timeless Children, which we've all tried to have counselling for. The Legend of the Sea Devils. There's too many recently. Showrunners are hitting more bum notes than successful notes, aren't they? And that is the problem. So people are saying, the ratings don't matter. The crowds will come back. If they expect the next series of Doctor Who's going to be good, audiences will return. Well, they did initially for the specials, but you've got to stop telling those viewers off when they do tune in. So we had a little thing today in our saloon. It was great to be back. Is Doctor Who dying? Can it be revived? My answers are, well, yes, but it needs a root and branch clear out. And I will repeat, as Chris Eccleston said himself, they all need to go. We need a fresh view on Doctor Who, and I'd like them to take their time on it. I've never liked this RTD saying we need to do 2 seasons back to back because of the Disney deal. And we've had to, in an 8-part series, do some Dr. Light episodes because the actor wasn't available. No, that's unsatisfactory. Put the brakes on, get all your ducks in a row and do it properly. I'm sorry, too much of this is a bit rushed. RTD seems to be thinking his unique selling point is, I've got loads of ideas, darling. I've got ideas for seasons 5, 4, 3, 6. In the middle of the night, when I'm brushing my teeth, I come up with a new idea. Okay, whether that's true or not, I don't care. The point is, make a lot of each idea. And because he is stuck stubbornly to the simplistic wham bam thank you ma'am formula of about a 43-minute episode, and everything's been done, worlds have been built, the problem's been presented, you are introduced to new characters, and then the whole thing is resolved in 43 minutes. No, that's too skimpy, too superficial, too Dr. Light, too cosplay. Go back to basics. If you believe in your idea, your sci-fi concept, the topic you're showing this week, or the world you're introducing, be confident. And less is more, RTD. We don't want to see every clip before it's broadcast. We don't want to see all the characters who are going to be revealed. Give us some space. Let us enjoy the adventure. Don't tell us the adventure's good and here's the adventure snippets before it comes on. You're taking the fun away. You're taking the imagination away. You are suffocating the brand. Stop it. Now, Time Agent Brendan better skedaddle before this transmission is tracked on the Subwave Saloon Network. I heard what happened to Harriet Jones. Bye for now. Time Agent Brendan checking out. Keep your ears to the ground. Stay safe, everyone.